I think of what Rudyard Kipling wrote in If. He said, when all men can count on you, but none too much. So what does that mean? Like, you can count on me to be there for you, but you cannot count on me to be unjust for you.
Yeah.
And that's what the Zionists are trying to demand of us.
Our neighbor's choice.
Well, we have a returning guest today on A Neighbor's Choice. He's a friend, a filmmaker, producer, and zealot, Jason Jones. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, I like Zealot.
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't cut anyone's ear off today, though.
Now, tell me, what is the origins of this?
I mean, this is a radio show, bro. They can't see your hand.
So right now, I'm doing two fingers. This is something you see on Crocodile Dundee. Remember
Not Crocodile Dundee, bro. Did they do that on Crocodile Dundee? He's doing the Shaka.
Yeah. What is that? What's the difference?
Well, it's the same thing.
With what he
No, you're
did in
doing the
Crocodile
Shaka.
Dundee, he does that to the.
Oh, does he do that?
Remember the Rottweiler's going after it? He goes, and it just moves away, it runs away.
I don't think you know how radio works, and you're a radio talk show host, bro. Like, no one can see your hand. So yeah, it's the Hawaiian Shaka symbol. I had a video go a little viral yesterday. I guess David, what you're talking about, where I'm. That was, by the way. So I'm with the Bishop of Kiev, interviewing him on the war in Ukraine, and the cameras weren't on, and he asked me what my logo represented, which is the Shaka symbol, and I told him the story of the train conductor in Hawaii who would go through the sugarcane fields and his hand was mauled. But he would always wave before the accident, and all the Filipino plantation workers, they'd wave back. And after his hand was mauled, he didn't work for a couple of months. And when he came back, they were all wondering, is he going to wave with that mauled hand? Well, he was missing. All he had was his pinky and his thumb. And he put his hand out and he waved with his pinky and his thumb. That became the Shaka. Then all the Filipino plantation workers would do that back to him when he would come through every day. And so to me, that's really a symbol of empathy and solidarity. It was like a beautiful gesture that happened spontaneously in the early 20th century in a sugarcane field on the island of Oahu. And now it's a symbol that's seen all over the world. But one day there was one Filipino guy born in the 19th century working in a hot plantation and saw the Hawaiian guy. He was a Mormon, actually, LDS guy. And so these Filipino Catholics, like, he'd come in and wave at them. And he had this thoughtful response, which just is really so beautiful, which was to wave back with only his pinky and his thumb, what we call the Shaka. So that is the origin of this, one of the most famous hand gestures in the world that, we associate with surfing or Hawaii. So that's that.
And there's another one that goes like this.
Now, brother, again, we're on radio. I don't even know how to describe that.
You just did it, brother. There's the clue right there. What I just did. This is Hulk Hogan, a famous surfer dude.
Brother.
A surfer dude from Tampa, Florida, Clearwater Beach, Florida. And he used to do this, cup his ears like this to the crowd.
Now, was the Hulk, was he a surfer?
Well, he came with that vibe. That was the vibe he was going, because he went to Venice Beach, California. Remember where all the guys would work out at the beach?
Yeah, I worked out at that very beach with my son 3 weeks ago.
Wow,
that was awesome.
Did it feel like you were back in the 80s again?
Yeah. There were a lot of old movie stars there.
Yeah, including you.
Yeah, well, I'm old. It's just not a movie star. I could have been. I should have been. I should have been a lot of things. I was certain as a child that I would grow up to be in the NFL. I was going to be a Hall of Famer. I knew that. I was also going to be a martial arts movie actor and a stand-up comedian. Unfortunately, none of those things have panned out for me.
You're kind of amalgamation of all of it, though, really.
Yet, man. I know. I don't know. I mean, maybe in my 60s, I'll enter the UFC, and that will lead to a film career in my 70s as a martial arts movie actor.
Well, it turns out you and I have racked our brains over the years as to why it is that our respective podcasts don't quite get as much views as we think they deserve. We just
Right.
found out the truth. We're the only two podcasts in the world that are not in the Epstein files. So, that's why.
No, I am in the Epstein files, but Pam Bondi promised me she was going to keep me redacted for national security reasons.
Okay. I thought that was only the female names. They had totally redacted.
Oh,
No
yeah,
names.
no, they actually released the victims' names. Can you believe that?
Oh my
They
goodness.
literally released the witness names.
Wow.
No, do you know Don Bongino? I don't want people to bounce off of your show and go do this, but you should probably do this. And if I was young and entrepreneurial and had energy, I would start my own podcast doing just this. But Don Bongino interviewed Kash Patel today.
I didn't know.
And well, I don't know. I'm not going to watch that, but I was reading the comments. The
Yeah.
comment. I mean, if someone were to start a YouTube channel simply reading the comment section of Don Bongino's podcast,
Yeah.
it would be the second best show on earth
Yeah.
after yours, or maybe Tim Dillon. I don't know. I don't know who I put in, but I like both you guys.
Have you been on Tim Dillon's show?
No, I would love to, just to impress my sister, because she's Tim Dillon's biggest fan. And I'm as tied for first for his biggest fan. I love Tim Dillon.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is it that, like, as a Catholic conservative, how is it that the voice of morality in America, like the strongest voice for morality in America, is an openly gay, I mean, he's not flamboyant, but he feigns that he is, gay guy. He's like the voice of morality and ethics in America. He's like the most powerful voice for just decency. This is where we are. And then you've got these mega church pastors trying to explain away the Epstein list. That's where we are. That's where we are.
I have forgot to look and see if John Hagee's name shows up in the Epstein file.
No, I think John Hagee, like the good senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, they heard there were girls on the island and there was no interest. Girls? What does that have to do with me?
So you used to be I do want to ask you though, you used to be a martial arts champion in Japan, right?
No, not in Japan, in America. And I went to
Yeah.
Japan where I had a career-ending injury.
In the match?
No, actually, it was in a fight in the United States. I had torn my knee up pretty bad, and I put the surgery off until after the World Championship or the World Tournament. And this was in 1995. And I'm very glad that I had the privilege of doing all of that, fighting in New York and around the world and in Tokyo. I fought in the Tokyo Dome, the largest stadium in the world. That was nerve-wracking. And it was a great experience. But as strange as this might sound, I'm glad I was injured. I was a young man in college fighting and going through a divorce with 2 kids, and I was 24, 25 years old. You could say my career was just starting. And then I kind of had this career-ending injury. And at the time, it was really devastating to me. But in retrospect, I'm grateful, because I still train and I'm 54 years old. And I can't imagine when you have a career for any length of time. I always talk about the martial arts. There are gladiators, warriors, and martial artists. And a martial artist is someone who trains to preserve the art, whether it's Greco-Roman wrestling or boxing or Brazilian jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai. And to me, a martial artist is a person who perfects this craft so that they can communicate it as a teacher, as a coach, as an instructor. And then you have what I call warriors. Warriors are men or women who train because their profession requires violence, lethal violence often. Soldiers, police officers. I would even say firefighters are warriors because they have to develop the courage to face death. And so there are those, you go into any Brazilian jiu-jitsu school, gym in your neighborhood, you're going to meet the warriors, the police officers, the soldiers. And then you have what I call the gladiators. And the gladiators are those whose job is to inspire us with their excellence. So we watch them and say, hey, I can be the best Home Depot area manager that there ever was. I'm going to be the Max Holloway of the paint department. I'm going to pursue excellence and greatness. And so they inspire all of us. And they're prize fighters. And they fight for money and glory. And but warriors can lose their life.
Yeah.
And gladiators oftentimes give up their health and their body. So I'm grateful I was a warrior. I was a soldier. I had the privilege of being a gladiator. And now I still love martial arts, and I teach and I train my sons and their friends. And just last night, they had the wrestling mats out in the garage. And they were going at it while I was drinking Prosecco with my wife, celebrating Chinese New Year, kind of living the dream. But yeah, no, I'm still passionate about martial arts, but it was just I'm grateful for the injury that allowed me to preserve the rest of my body, you know?
Yeah.
So I can train. I want to train till the day I die.
Yeah, we always talk about a lot of the Middle East stuff and Ukraine with you, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Asia first with you. Since I always imagine young Jason Jones, because I've seen a photo of you. You kind of look like Kid from Street Fighter.
That was not,
Yeah.
it's embarrassing. That was by design.
Yeah.
You know, that photo you saw was from when I was fighting in Japan, and I really hoped I would be spotted by some sort of like movie manager, agent, and I wanted to be in movies. I was acting in plays in Hawaii where I went to school and training, and I just thought, in fact, I'm making a movie now with a friend of mine who is the White Power Ranger. She's going to be directing it. Her name is Jessica Ray. And like, that would have been my dream. I can be a Power Ranger, and from that,
White Power Ranger. That sounds like everybody on Twitter these days. Goodness.
Yeah, she was the White Power Ranger, but she was actually
she
was the White Power Ranger, but she's Filipino.
I
never thought about that. You better say Ranger pretty quick.
I know, right? Yeah, you got to be careful
Ranger.
what you just said.
White Power. They're going to edit it out. Jason Jones is making a movie about white power.
Power
Ranger.
Power Ranger fighting for white power.
Power Ranger.
Yeah, Power Ranger.
Yeah.
So wait a second. So tell me again. Can you tell?
Well, that's something you and I get along with. Like, by the way, we do politics and we fight these cultural battles because we want to preserve culture and freedom and a vibrant community. Which is, what does that look like? That looks like kids going to Little League, girls practicing their ballet. It's about leisure. The fruit of a civilization is leisure. And so we try to save the Shire because it's not that we value the morals of Mordor, of violence and brutality and chaos, but it's that the violence and brutality and chaos is barreling down on the Shire. And, Frodo said, we save the Shire, but not for us. All my politics is through the eyes of, I want all kids to be able to roller skate while listening to Hall & Oates, and sit with their friends and drink Coca-Cola and play Tron in the arcade or whatever. Yeah. The beautiful childhood I had. Think about this, brother. I don't want to get you censored, but when we were kids, there was an incident that happened when I was a kid. No, I wasn't a kid. You were a kid. I was a grown man. There was an incident with Bill Clinton and an intern. You may remember.
Yeah.
And the big shock across America was, oh no, our young people are going to hear about this act that this intern performed for the president in the White House. And I'm not talking about bringing him a coffee,
Right.
It was a different kind of act. And so then everyone was like so worried about this. And now our children are hearing about our elite eating babies.
Goodness.
Eating baby. My son comes home from the park. He's like, Dad, is it true that Trump was a bop for Bill Clinton? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And then he explained it. And I'm like, aye. Where did you hear that? He goes, it's in the Epstein files. And my daughter comes home and she goes, Dad, is it true the global elite, or these elitists are eating babies? Like, what are we allowing to happen to the immoral imagination of our children? It's already being pummeled by streaming pornography and all this nonsense. But yeah, I think what we're trying to do, I love that you love your professional wrestling. Andrew Breitbart was one of my best friends. Do you know Andrew and I never talked politics? We talked Major League Baseball and new wave punk. We talked about punk and ska. We never once talked about politics. My wife would laugh because I always talk to my friends on speakerphone because I believe it'll give me brain cancer if I put it to my head, So my wife has to hear all my conversations, as does all my poor staff. And my wife would say, do you ever talk to him about, isn't he the politics guy? This is like in 2010, 08, 09, 10. I said, yeah. He's like, all you guys talk about is baseball and punk. Yeah. We're in politics, so kids can play baseball and skateboard with their boomboxes, listen to punk music, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I'm involved in politics right there.
Yeah. So what was it like when you went to Japan the first day you got there? Do you remember?
I do 100%, and it's hard to explain. But if anyone who's been there and then seen the movie, Lost in Translation,
Yeah.
it's just an incredible film.
One of my favorite movies. Yeah.
It really is. It captures this experience. And I was this young kid that my idea of Japanese culture came from samurai movies and Karate Kid. And I was not ready for and it's a little different. Tokyo is different today. It lacks its vibrancy and its wildness and its freedom. And it's very sad to me to see the Japanese culture that I saw in the 90s that was sort of optimistic and hopeful and lost, untethered. It's an irreligious society. It no longer has a cult, a national culture, or any cult of any kind that unifies the people. It's sorrowful. But, it was really, a tremendous experience. Then you get to be there with a bunch of young men and you're on television and, you're being interviewed and you're walking around in matching track suits. You feel important.
Did you see that movie, Marty Supreme?
I didn't.
You got to see Marty Supreme. It sounds like what you just described.
Really? It's set in Japan?
Well, it's the climax is he's a loosely based on a true story of this guy that has what's that little competitive ping pong? He's playing competitive ping pong and he takes off all over the world. You got to watch it. You'll love it.
Oh, I'll watch it. I'm looking for good movies.
It's still in theaters if you go to the artsy theaters, probably, or maybe it's streaming now. I don't know.
I watched Mercy last night.
Was that good?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, on an AI judge. It was really thought provoking and powerful, and surprisingly very good.
Yeah, I saw that movie, the Dracula movie, which was very Christian. Did you see that?
No, I want to see it because I remember when I read Bram Stoker's Dracula in college. I wrote a paper on it saying that I think this is a critique of war and colonialism and how that colonialism, the fruit of colonialism will be the bringing back of customs and traditions from other cultures that undermine British culture.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just very, very clear. So I want to see how this I saw it as an anti-regime change war kind of novel.
This movie is anti-war and it's non-violent. Actually,
I think Bram Stoker's intent was that violence is destroying British boys. There was an old saying that, a British boy who wouldn't steal a pack of gum in London will commit the most heinous crimes in Africa.
Yeah,
and I think that in the Anglosphere, just almost 2 centuries of relentless wars has undermined our culture. This idea that the neoconservatives were promulgating in the lead up to the Iraq War, that war is culturally invigorating, is said by pinhead academics that have never experienced war themselves.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to do that video. I guess you were talking to who now? The Ukrainian, who was it?
That was the Bishop of Kyiv, and he's wonderful.
Of what church?
The Catholic Church.
Okay.
Roman Catholic Church. And, in the past 3 months on the Jason Jones show, I've been able to interview a priest from Teba, a Catholic priest from Teba.
Yeah, when I saw that clip, at first I thought it was a hostage video that you had been captured somewhere in Ukraine, and I said, "My God, what have they done to him?" And then I saw logo. I saw your show logo. And I said, "Okay."
That was nice of them to print out my logo for the hostage video. I was like, "Can I also give out?" They're
going to make you renounce Renee Girard with your logo.
Can I give out my pillow code number too? and they're
going to make you step on a picture of Renee Girard. To renounce your faith in Girardism.
Never. I'll renounce my faith in Girardians, but not Girard.
Yeah. So why did you make that video? What was that about? Was that for some type
so that video, so I interviewed him. That little clip that you saw on the Shaka was actually, if you see me playing with my socks, checking my phone,
yeah, you were all over the place.
Because I didn't think we were on camera.
Okay.
They just kept the cameras rolling because they thought it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And they said, and I was like, yeah, put it up. I probably looked disrespectful to the bishop, but it was right before the interview. So I was checking my socks. You see me silence my phone. We're just getting ready to shoot. I was telling that story in a way just to let them check the volumes and get the lighting and everything set up. I was just BSing.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I love that story of the Shaka. Hey, are we going to be able to? I'm here for shameless self promotion in the defense of the oldest Christian community in the world. Are we going to get to that?
Oh no. No.
No. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
Well, you've got Alex Jones to talk to for that. I mean, I'm here to get to the soul of who you are, Jason.
Oh
That's
my
what.
gosh. Okay, who am I? Well, I'm a Palestinian Christian, brother. That's what a friend of mine from the West Bank emailed
Now,
me
wait a
yesterday.
second. I thought the goal of a Christian is to be a peacemaker, which means you have to not pick sides. Is that true?
I'm not picking a side. I'm just saying a friend of mine from the West Bank emailed me yesterday and said I'm a Palestinian Christian. You wanted to get to the soul of me. He said that. So maybe we should talk about SaveWestBankChristians.com,
Well, tell
our
us about this
website.
website. Tell us about the website.
So today for Ash Wednesday and for Lent, we launched a campaign for Lent to have we have a petition at SaveWestBankChristians.com. President Trump has been very clear, no more settlements in the West Bank. They are all illegal. And Israel responded the past week by relentless settler attacks on the Christian communities in Tebeh, Bet-Sahor, Bethlehem, and more. And on top of that, they announced they're going to destroy 11,000 Christian homes. These are in the 11,000 homes. These would be in the Christian community, so most of them would be Christians. And I'll be clear with your audience, like I don't advocate for Palestinian Christians or Palestinian Muslims. By the way, I don't advocate for just Jews. My organization has guards right now in front of churches, synagogues, and mosques that are exposed to violence.
Today is the beginning of Ramadan, too, right?
It is. And yesterday was Chinese New Year. So that what that means is probably our Lord's returning this year, and I won't get to see the next season of White Lotus. This is my concern. But back to the West Bank. So right now, there is the oldest Christian community in the world is on the verge of extinction and is being eradicated by the state of Israel. So we're launching the SaveWestBankChristians.com campaign. And with this Carrie Prejean Boller catastrophe, with them trying to persecute her for just simply expressing solidarity with the victims of ethnic cleansing and genocide, is preposterous. You've got Tucker Carlson this week, I think, is going to have the mayor of Bethlehem on his show. He was on my show last month. So Tucker Carlson takes my leftovers. That's how he's basically his business model. And but I'm so grateful that the mayor will be on his show. And the word is getting out. And Matt Gaetz tweeted out yesterday on X that if Christians in the world knew what was happening to Christians in the West Bank, it would be over for Israel. And, the reality is they're waking up. And so what is Israel's response? Is it to push the brakes? No, it's to step on the gas. And they're accelerating their brutal violence. They're killing. Yesterday, they set on fire hundreds of sheep. This is terrorism. You have a bunch of American and European settlers behaving like Boko Haram.
Why are they setting fire to sheep? What was the context?
Oh, they're slaughtered because they're trying to slaughter their animals. They're killing their animals. They're uprooting their trees. They're burning down their homes. They're bombing churches. Their snipers are shooting women. These things all happened, and are happening. So yeah, our goal is to take this Lent and do a full court press into the Catholic community and say we will not sit idly by and watch Netanyahu disrespect the President of the United States, the Pope of the Holy Roman Catholic Church, all of us Christians that fund that little welfare state. It is a little welfare state with their little welfare military that uses our money and our weapons to murder children. And that is coming to an end. This is going to come to an end. But if we cannot save the Christian community of Bethlehem, Bet-Sahor, Tebeh, where these are the literal descendants of the Jews that accepted Jesus, whose families walked with the apostles and our Lord himself, if we cannot defend them, we're a joke. Because as American Catholics, we are the most influential, wealthy Christians that ever walked the face of the earth. And if we cannot harness our voice, our wealth, and our power to preserve a peaceful, embattled, ancient Christian community, we are the Don Bonginos of Christendom.
Yeah.
We are the Cash Patels of the history of Christianity.
Yeah. So how do we save the West or the West Bank Christians there?
Well, if you identify as an American conservative Christian, you are in the right place, because the only demographic on earth that has been running shade and interference for the state of Israel are conservative American evangelicals, right? So we're seeing, though, under 30, even prior to the genocide, there was a catastrophic support for Israel amongst those under 30. But in the wake of a live streamed mass murder that's been taking place, those numbers are just cratering. So much so that I believe that the evangelical church in America was murdered in Gaza, because so many of their young people are becoming Catholic. In fact, I think a new study just came out. For the first time in American history, more kids under 18 identify as Catholic than Protestant. It's a big deal. And I think we're going to see more and more evangelical kids either leave the faith altogether, and they're going to either go to leftist ideology or right-wing neo-pagan illiberalism, right? It's a real problem. Or by God's grace, they'll go to the Catholic or Orthodox churches.
And hopefully they won't take Nick Fuentes type views with them, because that's kind of the problem.
Well, ironically, yesterday, Nick Fuentes, I saw a rant where he was ranting against Hitler and all these fools that make him out to be a hero. He said Hitler is an ethno-nationalist who hated Slavs. I don't know someone said, what does Nick have, like a wheel that he spins on the position of the day? Because it's strange. But my hope for Nick and the Groypers is they're an aggrieved generation. It's hard for our generation to see, my generation or boomers, to see how these kids are so aggrieved, but they really are. We've allowed pornography and apps and OnlyFans to obliterate Eros, the awakening of love and romance in their life and in their hearts and their minds. Imagine robbing that from your youth.
Yeah.
And then now we're watching as AI is like, all right, I'm never going to get married, but you know what? I'm going to be an architect. No, you're not. Okay, I'm going to be a writer. No, you're not. No, I'm going to be a graphic designer. No, you're not. All your jobs, all your dreams are gone. You're not going to have a job. You're not going to have a wife, but we'll give you universal basic income. Don't you worry. We'll give you universal basic income, and then we'll euthanize you the first chance. Yeah. So these kids are mad.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine how young boys reading the Epstein files, seeing that a foreign government used our young women as instruments to blackmail our politicians. These kids are being radicalized. So we as Christians really have to impress upon our children the way that we should respond to all these ideological enthusiasms. And it's not with bigotry or hate. So my hope would be for Nick and the Groypers that and it is exciting that they're really attracted to Catholicism. And by God's grace, through the sacraments and through the wonderful treasure of our church's teaching, I can pray that they're pulled away from these sort of hateful ideologies that are so attractive to young people. Our generation was a little different. But I was an atheist, Ayn Rand objectivist into my late 20s. But it was still, a godless ideology that catered to my instincts as a healthy young man, right? So, being an objectivist or Nietzschean as a 22-year-old at an American university, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's now's not the time for, honestly, you're talking about the the objectivist. And while I'm, friends with Ron Paul, and I would consider myself to be a political atheist or voluntarist, whatever that is. You know, I don't know. Just doesn't have a label that I agree with exactly, um, but at the same time, you know, I think now is not the time to talk about you're on your own. Now is the time to talk about, you know, solidarity. And that solidarity has to be very big in terms of its scope and its, you know, who's coming in the tents. Because the call for violence is always very attractive. And we have to build a big, big coalition with people all glued together in a way that doesn't allow for violence to break out. And that has to be, you know, one of the best ways to do that is to intertwine oneself into these networks and you know, get everybody intertwined in such a way that, you know, it's very incentivized to not break out into violence. And you know, that means maintaining our differences while we find some kind of common ground to fight towards. You know, there's common enemies do bind people together, but you can have common enemies that are healthy, that don't have to be actual scapegoats of flesh and blood. I was thinking about that earlier, you know, is I said this on the show yesterday, is that, you know, you cannot advocate and bear witness to the God who refuses to tear his enemies apart by tearing your enemies apart. You just can't bear witness. You cannot defend the Christ who would allow his body to be torn in pieces, torn apart, rather than tear apart his enemy. You can't bear witness in a way that tears apart your enemy. You just can't. It's a performative contradiction. You're bearing false witness against Christ and you're using his name in vain. And so whatever we do as we build our coalitions, it has to be glued to that. Not the aesthetics of Christianity, not the metaphysics of Christianity. It has to be glued to that radical commitment to nonviolence and solidarity with everybody that we meet. And I love the fact that you are always trying to push back against all the different, you know, and that's the same way I am. I mean, you know, you have to fight against the currents everywhere you look. You know, you can't go, oh, it's the Jews' fault. Oh, it's these people's fault. Oh, it's that person's group. Every human being deserves the opportunity to encounter the cross. The cross is for everyone. The cross, you know, Surratt was on my show. He said, Jesus didn't die. Jesus doesn't belong to the Christians. Jesus belongs to everybody. It's a beautiful way to look at it. So simple. It makes you feel a feeling of catharsis just thinking about that sentence. Jesus doesn't belong just to the Christian. He belongs to everybody. And who are we to use him as a talisman to bludgeon other people, right?
Well, you know, and that's why I say Christian Zionism is not Christian at all. It's a neo-pagan war cult. Yeah. You know, and it's, by the way, like, you know, for me, violence is instinctive. I was a very violent young man, always getting in fights as kids. I tried to harness it through sports that were violent. In the Army, I had 5 Article 15s, like my first year for fighting. You should probably get kicked out after your first one. I don't know how I managed 5 and stayed in. I guess being in the infantry was helpful, you know, but, and I'm grateful for that because I'm always trying to, I've spent my whole life praying to be gentle, to be kind, to be gracious, to be generous, to be meek, to be amiable. Those aren't my things. And then when you look at kind of fragile, weak people like Bill Kristol or Lindsey Graham, guys that have never missed a meal, have never been punched in the nose, have never slept in the rain or the cold, and they just obsess the way they talk about violence with such glee. And I think these are weak men who've never had to manage their own aggression. So when the spirit of the age possesses them, they completely lack the ability to resist the impulses to advocate for violence. And this is why, to me, where Rene Girard, I'm so grateful for Rene Girard to help me truly understand the gospel. What's there, what's clearly in the gospel, and what many of us Christians get through grace or instinct, what Girard does is he gives it to us explicitly, which is simply, you know, for example, let's look at Carrie Prejean Boller. who this Miss USA entrepreneur, businesswoman, her husband was in the NFL, was kicked off, or Dan Patrick is trying to kick her off this committee on religious liberty. And I apologize with the lights. They're trying to fix it now. But the they're attacking her viciously, calling her an anti-Semite and all this and that. And they're not attacking her because she's of anything she said about the Jews or Israel, because she said nothing about the Jews ever, but the state of Israel. The reason they're attacking her is because of her solidarity with Palestinians. And so what did Gerard teach us? Well, to stand with the scapegoat is to be indistinguishable from the scapegoat to this violent mob. So now when you stand with the Christians in the West Bank who are being beaten and robbed, or when you stand with the people of Gaza who, Randy Fine, Congressman Fine from Florida, your great state, when he was shown a photograph of a dead Palestinian child, he goes, "Thanks for this picture. Can you give me more of these?"
Yeah.
What kind of monster responds to a dead child that way? Well, I would say, the same kind of monster that would go to Epstein Island. They're the same ideology. They are the same country sponsoring them. And it's perverse. But if you're going to stand with the victims of Epstein Island, can you believe it? People are being attacked for wanting to see the documents. If you're going to condemn the genocide in Gaza, people are going to attack you in the most ridiculous ways. Yeah. Gerard told us this is standard operating procedures. This is always going to happen, so we should never be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's so confusing. It's all a house of mirrors, but it's hard to know. I mean, I was joking earlier about all these other shows, but these are all connected to, they're all connected to agencies and this thing and that thing.
No, it's shocking even when you look at like influencers and you just see how it's all manufactured. And I feel like I know a lot of people in the Epstein files, and none of them are in there in any creepy way, but they're there. And Dave Chappelle does this funny skit or bit where he talks about how he was never invited to any of those weird parties in Hollywood, even though he had the biggest contract in cable TV history. And he's like, "How come I never get invited to any of these P. Diddy parties, these weird parties?" And he's like, "I figured it out. It's because I'm ugly." I'm like, "Hey, how come I was never invited to Epstein Island?" Yeah. Sure glad I wasn't. But you could imagine in 2006 or 2007, if someone said, "Hey, you want to go to this billionaire's island?" You're going to say, yeah. So I'm sure there are some people there that, like Norman Finkelstein is the big winner. Ron Paul and Norman Finkelstein are the biggest winners of the Epstein list. Have you seen Norman Finkelstein's appearance?
Well, what do you do?
So Norman Finkelstein is the great Jewish professor, anti-Zionist, son of Holocaust survivors, and a beautiful and articulate and passionate times 10 advocate for the Palestinian people. Well, he was invited by a professor on behalf of Alan Dershowitz to go to Epstein Island. And I'm recalling from memory, but I think Norman Finkelstein said, "You should commit suicide and shame for even inviting me to that island with that pervert. And your child molesting friend, Alan Dershowitz, is a disgrace and disgusting, and you shouldn't even talk to him." And I was like, wow, that's how you want to be in the Epstein files right there.
And then Ron Paul, you're referencing when they called him when Jeffrey Epstein called him a name or something. That's what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, and they hated him. And you saw the Ben Shapiro quotes on Ron Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
Dave Smith just did this glorious takedown of Ben Shapiro, and what a sad little creature that guy is. It's just really kind of heartbreaking. It's just kind of heartbreaking. I was saying to a friend of mine today, because he was saying, this westbankchristians.com campaign of yours is going to cause you a lot of headaches. I'm like, yeah, everyone tells me that my whole career. You stand with this people, you stand with that people, they're going to destroy you. And I've lived a pretty beautiful life. I don't know what these people are getting for selling out, but for standing with vulnerable people against the mob, it's not been that bad for me. I've lived a beautiful life. I don't know what they're getting, but I don't think it's better than what I'm getting.
Yeah.
7 kids, 4 grandkids, going to a water park with my grandson for his birthday. Like, yeah, I mean, come on. It's better than that. On earth, nothing. Water park with your grandkids, that's like literally the best it's going to ever be in life. The only thing probably is good is being a kid with your grandparents at water park, right? But being a grandpa at a water park with your kids, grandkids, or being a kid at the water park with your grandpa, probably the best 2 moments in your life. Yeah, I don't selling out or being a coward in no way helps me with that.
Yeah. Well, but you say, I want to go back to how we can help the West Bank Christians
Oh
specifically.
yeah.
But before that, I wanted to ask you. You said the evangelicals are a big part of the problem, right? Well, for the Republicans and stuff, but what about the Democrats? The Democrats don't even have like a lot of evangelicals in their coalition. They've got some black and Hispanic evangelicals. They've got a little bit of liberal, progressive evangelicals, but those constituents are not that big into Israel, and so, but yet they vote just as strongly for all the Israel wars too. So, like, isn't that kind of depressing on some level? It's kind of like, even if we can snap our fingers and fix the evangelical mindset, you just can look at that on the Democrat side, and they're all just dutifully, their base is like 80% against it, and they just go along with all the representatives and everybody in the White House with Biden was all Zionist. And Kamala was going to be all Zionist. The House Democrats are all Zionist. The Senate Democrats are all Zionist. The governors, like the guy Newsom, are all Zionists on the Democrat side, and they don't even have the evangelical scapegoat to make their reason why they do it. So yet they still do it, and it's not enough of an issue for their base to make it an unforgivable sin. There's 80%. Let's say 80% of their base their voting base hates it, but it's not a do or die thing that'll make them sit out and vote for third party or Trump or whatever. So, like, isn't that kind of depressing though? I mean, like, how do we process that part of the picture? I mean, without going in, we're not talking about liberalism, but just that part of like the equation of getting over this never-ending war machine that is attached to this ideology in our government.
Yeah, I wouldn't, we should not allow it to depress us because it's just the reality that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
When I was a soldier, young soldier, we were in Thailand. There'll be a point to this. We were training how to do cordons and searches of villages. And so we'd
This is the
helicopter.
origin of how this was created.
Yeah, we would helicopter in, 100 helicopters would descend on some poor Thai village in the mountains that had no idea the US was coming to practice in their neighborhood. And then we would be in the mountains and we would surround the village. And one of my first sergeant actually was a Medal of Honor winner in Vietnam. And he had told us a story of when they were doing a cordon in Vietnam and how the Vietnamese learned how to break the cordons by just walking. They would, as soon as the helicopters would come, they would just begin walking in every direction. So they would make it too big of a perimeter. They couldn't form a perimeter. So you have to circle the village, everyone faces in, and then another line faces out. So nothing gets in or gets out. But what they would do as soon as the helicopters would come, they would just start boogieing in every direction.
Yeah.
And it would be impossible for them to do a cordon. I think this is how we break the grip the state of Israel has on not only the United States, but the West, which is we all have to break the cordon by walking as far as we can in our own direction. So I'm not going to tell the left on what to do. They have to do. They have to break the cordon. We know from Tulsi Gabbard's revelations that they have their nomination processes totally rigged. And it's not a free and a fair process. That then the Democrat nominee is selected by superdelegates. So that's a problem that they're going to have to address. Now, where I can speak and where you can speak is to the conservative and evangelical Christian world. And if we break the grip of the Zionists over the evangelical Christian world, that's checkmate, I think. So we all have to do what we have to do.
Isn't that why they're consolidating their new global superpower status they're trying to have in the Middle East? Is so it's a strip mine. They're strip mining. They know the writings on the wall, part of the pun of the Hebrew scripture reference. And
Yeah.
they're basically like strip mining what they can out of their political puppets they've got up there, big boy, and dragging him around like a sock puppet. And that's his legacy. Big boy's legacy is going to go down. I tweeted earlier today. I said Donald Trump drained the swamp, took the water, bottled it, and made his supporters drink it and say it tastes good. That's the final. That's where he's.
Oh, bro. No,
That's
look,
his
and what's coming
legacy.
for Trump and for MAGA folks that are fighting for a place at the table, they're going to wake up to no table.
Yeah.
And they're going to be,
Yeah.
It's not a place you want to be. Look, I run an organization, Vulnerable People Project. Our mission is to run influence campaigns on behalf of vulnerable communities facing ethnic cleansing, genocide, and war, which means I have to try to curry favor with administrations and people in positions of power. And it's been a tightrope walking with the Trump administration. But at this point, I mean, it has to be clear to everyone. Again, look at the com boxes of Don Bongino's podcast. And that is going to be how everyone in this administration who doesn't quickly differentiate themselves in very important ways.
And Trump's so excited to get that Nobel Prize. He doesn't realize where it's headed. The Nobel Prize will be the new swastika for the next century. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's just so embarrassing.
Humiliation,
it's so embarrassing the way that he's like these third world dictators who give themselves military awards, and they pin them on their chests as if they're some grand hero. What I really admired about Trump's first term was really how peaceful it was.
Yeah. Well, I knew that he was not quite exactly what we were looking for when he would have Michelangelo, the Ninja Turtle, come out and perform at his parties and his New Year's Eve parties and stuff. I said, my God, this is tin pot dictator stuff that this guy.
Wait, I never knew that. So he had who?
Remember the animatronic Ninja Turtle Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtle movie?
Yeah, of course. With his
somehow they dragged him out. They dragged out one of those full-size, life-size animatronics of Michelangelo with the person in it and got him to do Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go at Mar-a-Lago for his New Year's Eve bash or something. I said, my God, man.
Hey.
I love Ninja Turtles, but the way it looked. I
mean, that would have been really cool for a 6-year-old's birthday party.
But it looked like some kind of like something you would have seen at Saddam Hussein's palace parties back in the days in the 80s.
Oh, no, Mar-a-Lago's a disgrace. Mar-a-Lago's a joke. I've never gone, nor would I go. And people invite me. I could have gone to the inauguration, but instead I chose to be in the West Bank. I tried to be in Gaza. Israel wouldn't let me in. And I was there for the inauguration. All my friends were texting me, where are you? What party are you at? Where I'm like, I'm in the West Bank. I want nothing to do with this court culture. It's embarrassing. And so going back to what can we do for the West Bank Christians, anyone who wants to be the Republican nominee or the Democrat nominee for that matter needs to understand that this issue of the Palestinians is going to be the number one issue in the next presidential election. And it's not going to be the way that it used to be in the way you think of it. If you look at the polling around this issue, it is reversed completely. Whichever party nominates someone willing to stand up to the Zionists will be the next president of the United States. Yeah. Whichever party distances himself from the state of Israel will dominate American politics for generations to come. Will it be? It's like, to me, like segregation. The sea change in power in this country from the 50s to the 70s around sort of the institutional power based around segregation. Where you think of the power that the Zionists have, which they do. Anyone who wants to deny it, everyone's afraid to stand up to the state of Israel. Tucker Carlson told a story about how he was with Jim Carville on a plane in the late 90s. And he said something about, man, I think Israel really overstepped on this issue. And James Carville turned to him and said, listen, if you ever want your kids to go to college, you should never speak like that again. And Tucker said to Carville, what are you talking about? He says, they'll destroy your career and make sure your children never get accepted to a good college. Yeah. Why? Because he was criticizing the state of Israel at the time for firing in on a church.
When was this? This is the 90s? Yeah.
I don't remember. I mean, it's happened several times. I don't know which incident Tucker was talking about. It was just a reel that I was doom scrolling and I saw this reel. But, so if you go to savewestbankchristians.com, we're going to be updating it daily with all the new attacks. So every time Israel attacks a Christian community in the Gaza or the West Bank, but specifically the West Bank, every time they expand settlements, every time they drop a church or a school or a house, rip up a tree or slaughter an animal, we're gonna communicate it. It'll be placed on the website, and a press release will be issued.
Hey, since you got all your connections with the Vatican, why don't you call them and see if they can send some of their Swiss guards? You know, the guys that look like the ones from Wizard of Oz.
Well,
You know what I'm
it
talking
sounds like a
about?
joke, but I can see a day where Western armies descend upon that state and things change. I mean, Steve Bannon's already talking about that,
I
right?
don't
That
say what I'm not saying to sending armies. I'm saying get the Swiss guard to come out there and the Vatican protect their churches. Why don't they do that?
it's going to take more than Swiss guards to defend them from the state of Israel with artillery and tanks. And
Why would the state of Israel want to? All right, let's go through this process real quick.
so it's the state of Israel that is ethnically cleansing and attacking and killing the Christians.
Right, but why would they want to mess with their churches right now? Like
Oh,
that's not good PR wise right now.
they do not care. Just, haven't you noticed? I mean, yeah, you're right. They're in the news for running child molesting Rape Island and cannibalism. And the latest is that Israel got caught trying to place tracking devices on the president's emergency vehicles. That's a little fishy. Yeah, they don't pump the brakes. So we need to throw obstacles in their way because they're not going to pump the brake. What are those things the police throw down, cause your tires to blow out? If you think the state of Israel is going to pump its brakes in its pursuit to ethnically cleanse the Christians of the Holy Land, you're naive. You are naive. Go to savewestbankchristians.com and look at all of the documented attacks. So we need to stop them. And President Trump has said no more settlements. And Netanyahu's regime's response has been, we're going to destroy 11,000 homes. We're approving new settlements in and around all these Christian communities. And the way those settlements work is they divide the Christian communities from the Christian communities. They prohibit them to be able to travel, so they can't go to and from school, to and from work. And eventually it just becomes so broken, so scared, so confused. They don't have the inability to work. They leave. And then they tell us it's the Muslims that are making the Christians in the Holy Land disappear. But remember, the caliphate lasted 750 years. And not that it was like a utopia, but the Christian civilizations thrived under the Ottoman rule. And all those Christian communities have been decimated since 1948. What happened? What happened in the 40s? What happened in the late 40s?
Do you think that you're going to be able to get enough exposure to shift the needle on this and get this to stop?
I think that we are one drop in the ocean, and I think the ocean's growing. I think I'm very confident. You look at Carrie Prejean Boller's heroic stance. I'm so proud of this young woman. And again, she's being attacked not because she's a bigot, but because she refuses to be a bigot.
Wow.
Being
like
an anti.
This is kind of like the Alamo of that area, isn't it? Really.
It is, and I'll tell you,
this is like the last stand of like trying to preserve some place for the Palestinians, because once the argument, so to speak, like you said, Christians are not more inherently valuable than any Muslim.
No.
But the argument, so to speak, is if they can just consolidate and obliterate the sovereignty of these Christian strongholds, then the Muslims are going to be, easy pickings in terms of politically taking them over, right? That's the idea.
Yeah.
That's they need to get rid of kind of the idea of what you're saying right here, right? It's kind of like
they have to eradicate the Christians
so that they could just clean sweep the Muslims because they don't have as much PR support back home, kind of thing.
Yeah, and the Christians also in the Middle East will always say, "Don't differentiate us from our Muslim friends and neighbors,"
right?
Because we're all suffering together. My friend who's a Christian, who his sister was killed by the IDF. it was his Muslim friends. He's a Catholic man. It was his Muslim friends that raced to try to save his sister's life, and they were shot at by the IDF for their troubles. So, but of course, as a Catholic apostolate, we do front shelve our concern and care for Christians, but our concern and care for Christians isn't limited to them. But if I can't there are people watching here right now who are so addled with prejudice and bigotry that they think that we are naive to say that somehow the dignity and rights of the Palestinian people is equal to ours and to the Jewish Israelis. They think we're crazy because they're so cowardly. They're so afraid of whatever they're afraid of, death, I don't know, that just kill as many of those bad people before they kill us. And this is how they think. I remember reading Seneca as a young infantryman. I was 17. And Seneca, in one of his letters, said, if you don't worry about poverty, death, or your reputation, you're a free man. And that's been my mantra like every morning since I was 17. I don't care about poverty, death, or my reputation. And if you're good with that, then you can stand up to the state of Israel. And if you fear poverty, death, or the preservation of your reputation, maybe standing up to the Zionists isn't the best idea. And so you have a gaggle of cowards that refuse to raise their voice for the Christians of the West Bank. But I'm not going to refuse. I think we're going to win. I think we're going to save Bethlehem, and we're going to save Bet Sahor, and we're going to save the West Bank from occupation. And it's really the ball is in our court. There's no one I'd rather be if I surveyed the whole world and said, where could I be to be of an influence in preserving the Christian communities of Bethlehem or Bet Sahor? Where could I be? Or Tebe, where could I be? I'd say, I want to be an American Republican in Texas. I want to be a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, middle-aged American Republican in Texas who's Baptist. I'm all those things, but I'm Catholic. So, okay, there we go. I'm good. That's still pretty good. So we're in the perfect position. I am more useful. I'm going to be in the West Bank soon if Israel lets me back in the country, which who knows. I've been there 4 times in the past year, but I am much more of use in defending that community here than I am there. And there's nothing they can do to defend themselves.
You're saying you're much better useful here because you can do media? Is that what you mean by that?
I can do media. I can take people out to dinner. I can tell you how many very powerful people have flipped on this issue just because of hundreds of hours of calls with them over the past 2 years, or dinners or drinks or whatever. This is just how running an influence. The VPP runs influence operations, old school classic influence operations. And it's just,
who would be cool if you could get, someone like Kevin Sorbo or something to come out with you and stand in solidarity on camera protecting the churches over there, because he's the guy that's waking up to the war stuff, and he's also a big fan. He's loved by evangelicals. You know what I mean?
And guess Kirk Cameron too. And let me say this:
those guys to come out with you or something and do something.
Well, you know what? I would say this: Kevin and Sam Sorbo are my good friends, and they're 2 of the most beautiful humans. I mean, obviously they're beautiful humans, right? She was a supermodel and he was Hercules, and they're very kind and they're my friends. And I remembered at one point Sam had reached out to me, and I thought she was going to hate me because I just assumed because she was an evangelical, she was going to be upset at what I was doing. And it was clear to me even then, and this was maybe a year ago, she had a very thoughtful, nuanced position and was trying to understand it. And so I haven't been following Kevin, but you're saying Kevin is waking up and
get Kirk Cameron. You should make a sequel.
Kirk Cameron is so brave.
But
so brave.
It's going to be called God's Not Dead in the West Bank. That's the sequel.
Oh, dude.
Come on.
Dude.
Do it.
I love it.
Let's get Kevin Sorbo one more time. Kevin Sorbo one more time. God's Not Dead. I think we're on the number 5, right? God's Not Dead 5 in the West Bank.
Not Dead in the West Bank. We might have to do a differment name.
Maybe he owns the rights to that. Let's go talk to him.
God was murdered in the rubble of the West Bank or in Gaza. But, and this is the thing. People are beginning to wake up. Our generations and the generations older than me have really been, we are hypersensitive to anti-Semitism and Jew hatred and bigotry. But the devil is a judo master. I was going to say this earlier. It used to be that to be anti-Semitic was to hate Jews. Now they're calling people like Carrie, Prejean, Boller anti-Semitic because they refuse to hate Arabs, because they refuse to hate Muslims. Exactly. And I don't, I'm grateful. I guess it's not normal. Most people, where I grew up and my career, and I'm looking for a people group to hate, but it's important that I don't love somebody in that people group. Right? I want to find someone to scapegoat and blame for all the troubles in the world. And just when I think I found the people, I realize I have a cousin that's that, or a grandchild that's half that or quarter that. And I'm like, gosh darn it, who can I hate? So, what I love about our faith is that we are commanded. It's very sorrowful, but modern day rabbinical Judaism is a self-othering religion. By its very nature, we are other. We are set apart. In Islam, others. Whereas Judaism others themselves. Islam, there's the house of war and there's the house of peace. And there's two types of people. But in our faith, there's no other. How amazing is that?
Yeah.
That even our enemy, not that it's natural for me, obviously, who is it, Polymarchus in Plato's Republic, when he's asked what is justice and harming your enemies and helping your friends? Like, I think that's the natural setting for me, it's to be a tribalist, to be loyal over truth. But we're Christians. And I think of what Rudyard Kipling wrote in If. He said, when all men can count on you, but none too much. So what does that mean? Like, you can count on me to be there for you, but you cannot count on me to be unjust for you.
Yeah.
And that's what the Zionists are trying to demand of us, that we close our eyes to the ethnic cleansing and mass slaughter that's happening on this planet today with our taxpayer dollars. Yeah. And I'm not going to close my eyes.
I'm already worried about the people of Iran. They're about to, there's
should worry.
There's talks that there's going to be war tonight. So,
yeah, we haven't seen a movement this big, I guess, since the first Gulf War.
Yeah, goodness.
These people don't understand.
This is Donald Trump just is like Anakin Skywalker. He just gets dragged by his hair all over the globe like a big zombie president. It's pretty disturbing. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a more they always used to say Obama makes our country feel ashamed of ourselves, always on his apology tour. This is the most humiliating foreign policy tour I've ever seen in my lifetime. Everywhere he shows up, he's just being dragged like a golem.
No, it's in a way you feel sorry. I feel sorry for all of them.
It's better than all the other golems. I do exactly what my masters want. I am the best golem, the only golem you could ever ask for. It's me.
That's really good. Wow. Maybe you can do my voicemail. You should charge people to. Yeah, no, it's just sad. He reminds me of the character Tui from. Have you read The Fountainhead? By Ayn Rand? This guy was like the editor of the architecture page or something like that. He thought he was dictating fashion, and then he eventually realizes when he tries to tell the truth once in one of his reviews for Howard Rourke, he gets just attacked.
Yeah.
And he realizes all along that he wasn't manipulating the mob, that the mob was controlling him, and he blows his brains out. I mean, that's Don Bongino. Like, if Don Bongino or Kash Patel are found to have committed suicide, I will believe they committed suicide. Like, I honestly feel bad for these guys. I don't know how Don Bongino is tolerating this. It's just so you're right. It's a humiliation ritual. If I was him, I would just go off to the jungle somewhere and do ayahuasca for 36 months and then come back with long hair and a beard and sell, rent surfboards in Florida somewhere. I don't know how that guy shows his face.
No. And then look, Trump's deported less people than Obama by a lot, but yet, his administration has to have these killings of these protesters, which loses the narrative. He becomes the violent scapegoater of that narrative there. So it's like on every level, it's just fail, fail, fail. I mean, I don't know, whatever.
Well, no, and I want to go to that point. Like, I've been advocating. I worked for Pat Buchanan in 30 years ago, right? So I have been advocating for border security for a very long time. Primarily, not only, but primarily because I recognized as a young libertarian in the 90s that to get around all these government regulations, we needed a loophole. And what was that big loophole? Trapping millions of people in a dangerous underground economy and exploiting them and treating them like subhuman animals. That's been a loophole. So all of us have great benefits and all this architecture of legal protection for workers, but millions and millions of people are working in this country in a dangerous underground economy, and that's not healthy for a community or a society. So in the 90s, I started advocating for immigration reform, securing the border, a path to citizenship for children that were caught in the crossfire when their parents were being exploited, and they're raised here, but they're not citizens, and workplace enforcement. So yeah, I want to see a secure border. We should control the border, not the cartels. But when it comes to these deportations, poorly trained, poor leadership, and atrocious rhetoric.
Yeah.
And that leads to not getting the job done.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see and now imagine trying to sell border security.
Mother did not deserve to be killed. I don't even know much about the story. I wasn't paying attention.
No, that's insane. By the way, cowardly action. And so many of my conservative friends, when I would compare that shooting to Ashley Babbitt, they would tell me I'm crazy and that's offensive. Then when I would say to my Bernie bro friends, I'd say, I think what happened to this Miss Good is atrocious, but I also think what happened to Ashley Babbitt was atrocious. They'd get mad at me and say there's no comparison. They'd both sides would try to explain to me how one was right and one was wrong. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can look at both of them and say they're comparable.
Well, that's because you're talking about the royal path. Wide is the path to destruction, narrow is the path to righteousness, and that is the royal path that Christ walked. That's the way. Let's leave it there. Jason Jones Show, and the website today launched is, give it one more time, please.
DaveWestbankChristians.com. Now check this out. Not only can you help us, you sign our petition to President Trump. Okay, we're going to deliver that petition, hopefully at the White House itself. But also, if you can donate, you see a little donation button. We're providing prosthetics for children in Gaza and the West Bank. We just started this, and our first 12 prosthetics for kids are being made right now. Our goal is to do at least 150 prosthetics. Is 150 this year? It's about 2,500 each initially, and then as the children grow, they need new sockets. But you can be a part of that. What better way to live your life than to serving the most vulnerable people on earth? And imagine they descend from the earliest Christian community.
And I want to pitch you on that movie one more time. God's Not Dead in West Bank, starring Kevin Sorbo, and Jason Jones produces it.
Dude, I love it, man.
All right, take care.
God bless. It. All right, later.
Not the